Yahoo, we are now live. We are now live, and I can tell you for free that nothing will go wrong in the name of the Alagbara Baba God. Good evening, everyone, and it's my pleasure having you. My guest tonight is Lady Engineer Tayo Okuboyejo. The lady was like a kind of additional accolade that I coined her, but looks like it's not so acceptable. So, Engineer Tayo Okuboyejo. Good evening. How are you, ma?
I'm very well, thank you, sir, and thank you for having me on the show, sir.
It's my pleasure. Again, before I continue, there's this kind of act I normally read out just to enhance the show. And that is when I ask people to please help share and like the show, love the show, and subscribe, and please uh, press the notification button. I don't have a large one, but at least press it to support this show. So whenever I come on board, at least you'll be invited. And also, I'm looking at people who wants to advertise at a giveaway something in support. That kind of thing that will go to NGO people, NGO that I know. And or you want to sponsor, it's all possible. So tonight I have a lady. Uh, anything I say about her is not fake. I am not patronizing her because I've seen her. I think I've noticed. I tried to Google a little bit, but I'm telling you, I say, not yet. Google me, Kokobeng. But I can tell you that most of what is stated about her are statements of fact. So tonight, Engineer Tayo Okuboyejo is my guest. Tell me a little bit about your name, about yourself, what you have been doing, what you want to do. Shall we say another 5 years? Where do you want to be?
Okay. Thank you very much for having me on the show, sir. I'm glad to be here. My name is Temitayo Okuboyejo. I am of Awuri. Well, actually, I am of Awuri and Egba origin in Ogun State, and I am married to an Ijebu man. So I like to call myself a one-dimensional Yoruba woman because all my roots are in Ogun State. All my roots and tentacles are in Ogun State. So I am I'm a I was an engineer, if until maybe 5 years ago. Then I became a civil servant, and now I am an information governance specialist. So I'm a security consultant, put it that way. I work on information security.
I'm scared.
So
I'm scared. So what you are saying to me now is security. So if somebody were about to be kidnapped now, are you
oh
going to
no,
help
sir, not that kind. I said information security, sir.
Mama, I just want
Not
to.
that kind of security, sir.
So look, people should not be afraid.
No, they
They should
shouldn't.
not be very, very afraid.
I am very, very harmless.
Very good to hear that. Well, again, I have no doubt in my mind that there is that's a path. Sorry, that's my internet phone that is calling me. Again, this show might not be 100% so professional like some people will say. I'll tell you, it is a show. That is the show we are doing the way we like it and the way we think is the best to do it. Uh, my internet radio is on. Aha. There is a path to become an engineer, especially when you want to add all this other area of endeavor or activities. How do
Mm.
you go? How do you, I know you need to go to university? You cannot do engineering in primary school tàbí secondary school. That I know, Sha. So tell our viewers, how do you come about engineering? What and what do you need to do to become an engineer?
Hmm. Well, it depends. So the path to engineering these days is wider than what it was in my day. In my day, the path was through a university degree,
Mhm.
but these days you could go through an apprenticeship, so you can go and work for a company as an apprentice and then get sponsored to a degree. But I'm sure that to have or to do the kind of engineering that I did,
Mm.
you have to have a minimum of a first degree. So I basically, you know, I obtained a first degree in electrical and electronics engineering and a master's degree in petroleum engineering. And then I worked in the oil industry for about 15 years before I moved into public service. So I worked as a civil servant, but also in energy. So I worked on energy policy. And then I recently moved on to information governance. So, yes, that's my background in a nutshell, sir.
I just want to know more about this your area of occupation.
Hmm.
What does I know you give you I mean you explain the path how
Hmm.
to be an engineer in so area, but what do you have to do in that your area of calling? What do you have to do? Let's start with the first part of petroleum engineering. You said, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. What do you have to do? And what does that mean to an ordinary person? Okay. Is it
Well,
to sell petrol in petrol station? I don't understand.
so petroleum engineering is a very, very big area,
Hmm.
and there are lots of specialisms. So there are people who specialize in drilling, and that is the people who drill the oil wells.
Yeah.
There are people who specialize in what we call completions. So that's when the well has been drilled, they are the ones who, without using technical terms, they're the ones that ensure that the well is 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 done in a way that allow the oil to flow to the surface without causing too much problem to the well. And then you have people like me who are
Hmm.
called reservoir. So I was, or shall I say, I'm still a reservoir engineer because I can pick up reservoir engineering anytime.
Hmm.
So people in my discipline, which is reservoir engineering, and what we do is we do something called forecasting. So we look.
Like weather forecast. I'm sorry, I'm a layman. That's why I might be
Yes,
asking you
yeah,
some.
yeah. Well, yes. So we're forecasting, but we're not forecasting the weather. We're forecasting the amount of oil
Hmm.
that any given field can produce. And part of that includes something that we call reservoir management. So it's basically looking after your reservoir to make sure that you get as much as you can out of it. In a nutshell, that's
What do you
what
do?
mhm, what
And
I did back then.
yeah, yeah, that's very interesting. Because I, if you look at the voluminous area of education,
Hmm.
there's nothing so far so good that is not that cannot be studied, that cannot be learned. And you
Yes.
start by saying in the olden days, no, not in the olden days. So olden days now is you are part of the olden days where you need to
No,
have
I'm not, sir.
minimum. You
I
need
said I said in my days. I didn't say in the
not
olden
in the
days.
olden days where that's about 300 years ago.
Your days will be olden days. In my days is just down the road here, sir.
Not very far.
Yeah, not far at all.
Don't worry. It's going to be far, far, farthest. You are going to be as long as the Bible suggested, which is minimum three scores and a 10, Abby. Something like that.
Yes.
You know, don't worry. Now,
Amen.
yeah, thing of pleasure for me to see our Mowa that
Mm-hmm.
they are doing very well, more so in position of not necessarily position of authority, but position. Well, it's also when you are good at a certain area of studies, and you know your audience. It's also as good as saying you are good in position of your in position of authority, because as you just said, you can forecast, you can analyze, you can do a lot of things when it comes to petroleum and so on and so forth, and that makes a lot of difference.
Yes.
Um, the other thing is, you apart from that, what are the other area of preoccupation? Are you into other things like what?
Well,
You're a
so
family woman, I can imagine. You
hmm
married how
well,
many
well,
and all that.
well, I no longer work as a reservoir engineer. But
Mhm,
that's what I trained in university for, and I my first professional job or my first professional career was in reservoir engineering.
mhm,
But then afterwards, I moved on to policy making. So that's working with governments to provide solutions. So I think maybe the best way to describe it is when the, a government comes into power.
mhm,
So they would say, okay, we want to do, so this is part of our policy, or this was an electoral pledge. So they might, let me try and think of an example. Okay, a good example, you know, something that anybody in the UK can resonate with is get Brexit done.
mhm.
So,
That
so
involve,
when,
involve a
yeah.
lot of policies and so on and so forth. Yeah.
Mhm. So when politicians make those electoral pledges or what they put in their manifesto,
Or statements.
yes, it is the job of the civil servant to make those pledges a reality. And essentially, that's what policymakers do. So you turn that slogan into a policy by,
You actualize it.
yes, exactly.
Actualize it for the ministers.
Yes. So I worked in energy policy because, you know, oil and gas is energy. So
Hmm.
my stint in the civil service was in energy policy. So I worked in the electricity markets across various domains. So I
Ah,
did
ẹ̀yin lẹ jẹ́ kó wo náà wá lọ sókè. Aha.
Awako. It's not us. It's not. It's certainly not us. In fact, if anything, we make sure that
The price
you
come
know,
down.
yeah, well, that's the, the price do not go up crazily, or that it is available all the time, that people need, for as long as people need
Exactly.
electricity.
Also, is it safe to say that part of what your major considerations are, that you look for alternative energy, something that will bring cheaper energy to the provider, I mean the provider, to give to the users, end users. Is that one of your
And
concerns? Is that one? Is any?
it's
Does
it's
that concern you?
it's so the space that I work in is also very big.
Hmm.
So I worked on, so if, believe it or not, even in energy, there is wholesale and there is retail. So the retail side are the people that sell to households, but the wholesale side are the people who make the energy, like the power plants, people who own gas plants, coal plants, maybe even people who want to use nuclear, that sort of thing. So I worked in the wholesale. I worked on the wholesale side. So in a way, it's like saying people who go and buy the energy in bulk before
Mm.
it is then sold in eyo to household.
And in retail, they now start retailing it.
Exactly. Yes. So I worked in wholesale. There's a technical name for it. I won't say it here because I don't want to confuse anybody. So, but I
No, I
worked in,
understand.
yeah.
I
So I
understand.
worked in the,
Mother,
I,
mother, mother style. We started by talking about your name. When you said Awori Axis,
mhm,
it just like many people don't even know that my origin, my father, my mother uh, have Awori, have Abekuta in a way. But I was born in Lagos,
mhm,
born in morning of 3rd of March, and then taking the same day. You know the way àwọn bàbá wa àti bàbá, the way they operate ṣe Èkó náà bí ẹ sí, bẹ̀tẹ̀ wọ́n gbé mi lọ sọ́tà ńjọ́ kejì nǹkan kan fẹ́ mo ní ibi tẹ́ gbé mi sí ni màá máa lò. So, but I ended up going back to live in Lagos and went to school at Epe. Where were your initial primary and secondary education in Nigeria?
So I was born in England. I
Mhm.
was born in London, Stockwell. My
I
my
must talk well. Oh, that's Victoria Line, Abi.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. So I was born in Stockwell, and my parents were students at the time, and of course, when they returned to Nigeria, they took me back with them.
Mm.
And what I remember, my first childhood memory was growing up in Agege.
Mhm.
So I went to a Jaconde school that I'm very proud of in Agege. It's a school called Ibukulu Primary School in
Mm.
Pakpa Shafa, Dokpemu.
Ikwemu.
Mhm.
I think I
And
did
then,
doctor.
yes, Dokpemu is very popular. Dokpemu is just when you are going from Oshodi to Yanokwaja.
I wanted to say so, not very far from, and the way to also to an Alimo Shore area and company.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
kind of, yes. In fact, that's correct.
Mm.
Yeah. So I went to that school. Then secondary school, I went to three secondary schools actually. So the first secondary school I went to is Jubril Martins High School.
That's
At
somewhere in Surulere, Abi.
No, that's there is one there, but the one I went is at Oniwaya, also in Agege.
Okay.
And then, but I only spent my first year there, my JSS one, as we would call it.
Mm.
And then I went to Baptist Secondary School in Oyo. I mean, sorry, in Ibadan, because my dad got transferred to Ibadan, and all of us had to move to
Baptist is
Ibadan.
different from Oliver Twist. Oliver
That's Olivet Baptist in Oyo.
Olivest Baptist. Okay.
Yeah, but I went to Baptist Secondary School,
Baptist, yeah. Okay. Mhm.
Okeado,
Okay,
Ibadan.
I do. Is that the continuation of the school founded by Baba Lion at the Lion days?
I think so. Yes.
As you can see,
Ah,
I'm following you everywhere.
I
You.
can I can see that. And then I spent 2 terms there, and then I went to Queen School Ibadan.
Okay.
So Queen School is at Akpata.
Akpata, yes.
So I went to Queen School from JSS2, and that's where I finished my secondary school education.
And then you bought a ticket and then they brought you back to
And and
London.
then and then exactly, and then they bundled me into a plane and brought me back to England.
Looking back at this your journey, where you are today,
Hmm.
how soon do you want to go back to Lagos, Nigeria?
Or if I can go back to Lagos tomorrow, in fact, right now, if I can go back to Lagos right
In
now,
fact,
I
since
would.
yesterday, you will have been in Lagos since
Yes,
yesterday.
I'd be gone like yesterday.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, reason for that is just to continue to explore.
Mm-hmm.
to find more about a place of joy where you take me, walk me through a couple of things that will make you to go back to Nigeria tomorrow. Couple of things.
Okay. So, number one, family. All my siblings are still well, not all. Most of my siblings are still in Nigeria. So I would like to be closer to them, and I would like for my children to get to know their cousins, and that connection
Their
besides.
roots. See, their roots, Abby.
Yes, yeah, you can say that. I would like for my children to be aware of the connection that they have with other people aside from me and their father. So that's important to me.
Mm.
And then of course, I don't know, when I'm in Nigeria, I'm not a black person, and it's wonderful. Like when I'm in when I'm in Nigeria, I don't I'm not thinking about myself as black. When I'm in Nigeria, I'm just a human being.
So you feel more what you, in another way you feel more at home in Nigeria
Ye-
than another place.
yes, yes.
Mm. Good. But also a large number of people
Hmm.
will not want to be in your shoes. They will say anything but Nigeria, which says to me they want to leave at any cost. Even if the journey is going to be hazardous, it's going to be whatever, as far as they are concerned, they just want to leave Nigeria for another place. Do you know what is responsible for that?
So I mean, there are lots and lots of challenges in Nigeria, especially for a young person. But at the same time, I I was I was raised, or shall I say, I was trained to see challenges as opportunities. So it's hard for me to say if I would be thinking the same way if, I had spent a larger number of my adolescent and young adulthood years in Nigeria. I don't know, maybe I would be thinking the same way. But I I I always felt like for humans, the grass always, the proverbial saying about the grass being greener on the other side applies here. Sometimes people do not see the opportunities underneath their noses because they're busy thinking about other things, and they're seeing problems instead of seeing opportunities. So I don't know. It's kind of how I would phrase it.
Wh- wh- When, when you are talking about opportunities or of opportunities, why again, like I said, if the opportunities are there, available,
Hmm.
less of minimum challenges. But when you look at the challenges greater than the opportunities, let's start by saying the level of working, I mean, for younger graduates, the graduates that come out of universities that do not have any gainful employment, uh, they end up, the men, the young ones, even some young girls now are Okada drivers. Uh,
Hmm.
and so when they look at that and say, irú ilé ayé wo leléyìí? Oh my God. And when they now look at the counterparts, people of their age group in Netherlands, somewhere in Germany, in Luxembourg, in Switzerland, or and the America and Canada and the UK, say, well, um, it's just like somebody wants to start comparing himself or herself with you. The first look at the money, ah, engineer in UK. Yálà yòówó ló ń gbà o. Yálà yòówó ló ń gbà, owó rẹpẹtẹ ló ń gbà o. And then if they say owó ló ń gbà, as far as an average Naija is concerned, 2,000, 3,000 pounds a month. Ó lè ra gbogbo area ìwàyà ìpájà area abúlé ẹ̀gbá nǹkan kan bẹ́yẹn. So because that's it like that. When you have people thinking like that, what do you think is missing in their calculations?
So it is very important to work with what I would call credible information, credible data. And what often happens is that a lot of us already have an answer in our minds, and we look for information that fits that answer rather than taking a step back and getting the information, analyzing it, and seeing it for what it is, and letting the information guide us to get the appropriate answer. I hope that's kind of clear. So in
Yeah, go on.
in my head, the way I often see this kind of things. So for example, I mean, when I graduated, I went to I went to South Bank University, London, which, you know, it's not one of the top rated universities. Anybody can look that up. It's not in the league of Imperial College. It's not in the league of King's College
USL,
or UCL,
UCL,
or yeah, or so
Cambridge,
it's
Oxford,
yeah, so
LS, LSC.
it's one of the lower rated university, but at the time I didn't know any different because I just come to the UK. So I went there, I got my degree, and I struggled to get a job. And then, of course, by the time I finished, I realized what I needed to do, that I needed to go to a school with a higher rating, and I knew that I always wanted to work in oil, and that's exactly what I did. And it was not by any means easy to do. It took me, I remember that after my first degree, it took me another 3 years of job searching and not finding a job as an engineer before I decided that I was going to go and do a master's. So I went and did a master's, but then by this time I knew that I needed to go to a school that is highly rated. So I went to a school that is highly rated, especially in the subject area that I wanted to study. And I did that, and from doing that, I got my first job, and from there on, my career is sort of taking, you know, what I would call a good. Well, I've had challenges along the way. You
But
know,
instead of that nose diabetes was going up and up, higher and
well,
higher.
let's just say that I usually try to see my usually when I come across challenges, I often see it as an opportunity, and I will get to that point. So this was, I worked in the oil industry for as long as I did, and then oil price crashed, and the oil that's produced in Britain is one of the most, it's expensive producing oil compared with producing
Is
in.
that that we're talking of North Sea oil now?
Yes.
Hmm.
So I worked in the North Sea the whole time. So, North Sea oil, production price per barrel is is probably the highest in across the world. So oil price really needs to be quite high for the companies in the North Sea or in the UK to make profits. So, because of the crash in I think between 2016, yeah, around
Hmm.
that time. So I was out of a job. I was made redundant. And this was why I decided to go and work with the civil
Government.
service, yes, in government.
Hmm.
And even that government job, it's not like it just landed on my laps. It took me like another 2 years before I got it. I was out of job for 2 years. So, you know, so what I'm trying to say, sir, is that there's no bed of roses anywhere. I've I certainly wouldn't say that you know I have not had my lucky breaks, because I do believe that all of us, we do get our lucky breaks. I had my fair share of lucky breaks, but at the same time, I had my fair share of challenges, and I just chose not to let my challenges define not only the moment but define my future. So I always try to think outside of the box and look at how I can convert my challenges into opportunities.
Hmm. Having listened to this, I think because the way you operate, you use your spirit, uh, but at the same time, the truth of the matter will always be that the location, the environment, because I can imagine your your age group, your course group that did the same studies in Nigeria, University of Ilorin, University of Abuja, blah blah blah, and so on and so forth, that has to go through what you have gone through. I can tell you for free that the survival rate of such students or such graduates to be very low, because what I'm trying to say is the the amount of little support that
Mm.
are open to you here, they're just not there. Am I making sense?
Yes, I mean, and this is why I talked about lucky breaks. So I had my fair share of lucky breaks, and I certainly believe that as grim and dire as Nigeria is, I like to think, and I'm sure people will challenge me on this, but I like to think that everyone, to a degree, will get their lucky breaks, and and opportunities are not equal. I would admit that, so the opportunities that are available in the UK are definitely nowhere near the kind of opportunities that anyone would get in Nigeria. But I certainly believe that even at that, despite the grimness of what many consider Nigeria to be, there would be lucky breaks open to individuals, and it's up to us as human beings as to how we exploit our lucky breaks and how we use them to
So yes, I think the system freezes. The system was frozen. I wanted to quickly say "Jẹ́ pe panápaná" because very unusual. Frozen. When I have used in the last 2 years Zoom, uh, different kind of application more than àwọn tó ń dálẹ̀ gangan, because
Mm,
18 hours a day, many times a week, I'm always on either Zoom or this kind of.
I can imagine, sir.
Now, let's
Mm,
now gradually go to some other area.
mhm.
The little time I've known you, and I can see you are a political activist. You are involved in
Oh,
politics.
I'm not an activist, sir.
Ah, wow.
I'm not an activist. I am an aspiring politician.
What's the difference? Why? You see, because this is also an issue for
Hmm.
me as a uh, political and public affairs commentator,
Hmm.
and also as a student of political science,
Hmm.
and now also as an experienced person living in the UK or having lived in Germany and some, I know some other European countries. I have find that most politicians that either right at the top or just ordinary common what do you call member of their local governments, their boroughs, and so on and so forth. They they have gone through the ranks. They've been trained. They are more an average local government chairman here. is so informed that if he's called to come and become prime minister or become minister, spokesperson for so and so thing, he's already he has already acquired it in the process of participation. Am I making sense? Then when you when a Nigerian to me or an African hasn't got that kind of nuance, hasn't gone through that àwọn nǹkan tó yẹ kó kọ́
Mm.
tailoring ibẹ̀ tó fẹ́ máa ṣe tailor kò mọ nǹkan kan pa àgbàfọ̀ nǹkan kan àbáyé máa ń sọ different kind of things ṣá mechanic kan ní ẹ ṣe bí ibi tí spanner wà rèé tí wọ́n á kàn lò lórí àwọn valves ṣé àpò lè damage. So all I'm trying to say to you, um, I'm not saying the only route is to be an activist, but there are two different things. I'll agree with that. Tell my viewers, which additional education have you do you think is going to, because 95% of Nigerian politicians, I can tell you also for free, they are just not qualified to be there. The only qualification most of them have is from garage. They have garage education because they don't know what we're talking. And I'm sorry, I want to be challenged because they don't know what exactly we're talking about governance. As far as they're concerned, joining being government in Nigeria is another wonderful opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
go and labe, to go and dally, go and steal the Commonwealth. What are the education you have that you think to make you to aspire to want to become, is to become a House of Rep member or Senate, which are always open to you, or local government chairman or House of Assembly member? Which one are you aspiring to, and what are the just minimum qualification you have to become one?
So, I mean, speaking for myself personally, so my aspiration is to one day represent my federal constituency, maybe even become governor of Ogun State one day.
Mm-hmm.
So, but we'll see how well that works out.
It will work out.
Uh,
I pray. Now that I know you are from my Baba and Mama area, I want to
mm,
see you as a governor. Maybe I will still be in my 80 or whatever, or I'm still alive. And if I'm not, I'm praying for you in advance that may your prayers be heard, become governor, and say, I remember that old man. Oh, hey, I wish that I didn't know, nobody knows it.
Ash-
So,
Asheo.
Ashe. So, continue. Àwọn nǹkan wo ni ẹ mọ̀
So,
nípa Nigerian politics?
so I mean, there are two things in my humble opinion, sir.
Mm,
So the first one is that there is a philosophical saying by a man called George Santayana,
mm.
and he said, "Those who do not learn the mistakes of history, they repeat
Well,
them."
yeah, I don't know what that means.
So, one of the things that, I mean, that to a degree, it's part of it's. I find it interesting is that one of the ways I've chosen to educate myself is by reading about Nigerian history. And I try to read as wide and as far as I can about, the history of us as a people and the history of the area that we call Nigeria that we occupy.
Mm,
So you know, I read up what our past leaders have done, the ones that I know about. I read up on them, and I follow up on events so that I can put a policy analyst's hat on some of the policies I hear from government officials. So that's on one side. On the other side, in terms of experience, or shall I say, knowledge, um, I mean, the jobs that I've had in the past has given me the opportunity to manage and to lead and to make decisions.
mm,
and to, access or look for information, the right information, and use that information to arrive at the right conclusions. And on top of that, because my background is so technical, I've taken myself back to university to go and obtain a master's in public administration, and I'm in the middle of that now, so I expect to finish next May by God's grace.
Amen. It's going to be. So, which means another word,
Which means it's just another master's. It's another, so it's an
another cap,
exec. Yes, another another cap,
or
sir.
another feather.
No, I think it's a feather, actually, not a cap.
Another cap.
The
No, you
feather,
are not wearing it yet.
not yet, sir. So I will collect the feather by May 2023, sir.
Inshallah. Inshallah.
Bikudratillah.
Mm. Now, there's another thing. Why I'm asking this is because I'm going to gradually take you to an area that is uh, very, very important to me, because it
Mm-hmm.
looks like my experience is not going to be or cannot be the same with your experience, judging from the little gap in our age, whatever. So, so and because of this gap in age, you experience is something you cannot buy. You have to make it. Even if someone gets his professor whatever at the age of 18, 19, he has to go through 20, 30, 40, 50. So Nigeria is a nice place for me. That was in the past. How do you want to rate governance in Nigeria as you speak?
So I would say governance in Nigeria at the moment is very challenging.
Mm.
It's definitely not what it should be, and there is room, plenty of room for improvement. I mean, that's my observation from afar. And because so much has gone wrong, it is going to take a lot of concerted and intentional efforts to get Nigeria back on track. But despite that, I consider Nigeria my home, and for that reason, I feel like I'm not in the league of people that will ever speak bad about Nigeria. If a Yoruba adage comes to mind, ọmọ ẹni ò ní burú títí ká fẹ́ kún pa jẹ. So I think about Nigeria in that respect. Like, look, irrespective of how grim or dire it might appear, it's my country, it's my home, and I love it, and I love my country. And whenever I get the opportunity to serve my country, I intend to serve Nigeria well.
Well, that takes me quickly back. Your NYC was where? Did you?
Oh, I didn't do NYSC.
I did my
I,
1980.
I never got a chance to do it. I tried, but I never got a chance to do it. So I just, forgot about it.
Uh, Engineer Tayo, you know what I'm trying to take you through the issue of, because as you speak,
Mm-hmm.
there are so many issues that need to be addressed
Mm-hmm.
in Nigeria, and one of them is the kind of governance. You might not be people, it may not be people like you and I, but the people of Nigeria have to deal with that the last 60 something years that they just like been denied. I want to use, I choose my word, being denied of basic things that you and I take for granted. I mean, what do you think is responsible for that? I know one of the answer might be bad governance. I'm not speaking for you. You might have another answer. But tell my viewers, people listening to this program, Why the last 62 years had only generated a child that is still yet to crawl, because the child is like abami, because it's nothing happening. Kò tiẹ̀ tí ì lè bẹ̀ sí crawl náà lè sọ́kọ̀ wípé ó fẹ́ rìn. Ìwé ni àdúrà lẹ́yìn ó lè fẹ́ sáré. But when you look at the development of other countries like Dubai, Germany, Australia, and so on, UK, and so on and so forth, the last 60 years, when you look at the invention of automobile, 40 years ago, Mercedes Benz, like a kind of a coach, like a kind of a wagon. But today, Mercedes is I mean, nice car. We have not shown ourselves or the world what we have done the last 60 years with our life. What do you say?
So first off, I think it is very important to lay out the issues that Nigeria has had in the last 62 years, 62.
Yeah, 60, yeah.
So the key issues, the standout issues, number one, um, until 1999, which is
Mm.
what, just over 20 years ago, Nigeria has not had a consecutive democracy. So out of that 62 years, Nigeria has only had a consecutive democracy for a continuous democracy for about 22 years. So let's not. So that's one issue. Also within that 62 years, our country has gone through a civil war. That's another issue. Then also there is also the fact that we've there has been several coup d'etats with each new dictator having his own ideas of how to run the country, and basically governing the country by the barrel of a gun. So if you go from 1966, when Nigeria went into civil war, after
67,
that,
yeah. Yeah.
well, no, okay, so the coup was in 66, so the war was in 67.
Mhm.
67 to 70, Nigeria was under a military, well, 67 to 74, Nigeria was under a military dictatorship, whether you like it or not. Because those who governed us did not govern us they didn't have a mandate from us. And then of course you then had another coup, Muritala's overthrow of Yakubu Gowon.
Mm.
So that was from 75 to 76. Well, Muritala got um, assassinated and Obasanjo took over. And then we had, you know, the military government up until 1979. And then we sort of went back into democracy, 79 to 83. By 1984, another coup by another military government. Yet again, we're being governed by people who did not have our mandate. And these are key and important factors. And you know, it's very important to situate this within the context of the challenges that Nigeria as a country have had to face. So, and I personally, I think that since we have gotten back to you know continuous democracy, although I know a lot of people do not necessarily agree, I believe that if we do not have any further interruptions by the military, we are on the way to you know having some kind of actualization as to what we desire as a country. And that is happening whether people choose to admit it or not, because as we speak today, People can, there's freedom of speech, there's freedom of expression. You and I are like on a screen now talking about Nigeria. People are doing it across different spaces within Nigeria without fear. And these are important things. Also, now we can all openly criticize our government and criticize our government's officials without fear of recrimination or retribution. These are important in the foundation of a country that is trying to build its democratic institutions. So for me, I sort of see some positives in that respect. However, there are plenty of negatives, and those negatives, starting from something as basic as potable water. One of the things I find particularly saddening is the fact that potable water, you know, potable drinking water remains something that the government cannot provide. It's sad and it is shameful that over that 20-year period, the government has not been able to get its act together, both at federal and subnational levels, to make this happen. And of course, we can add other human development, indices to access to water, that you and I know, and many of your viewers would know as well. So certainly, Nigeria is not it's not where it should be. However, I some of the positives that I see are those that I have enumerated earlier.
Engineer Tayo,
Yes, sir.
um, I just want to put it to you that anybody can say, why is Otumba always critical of Nigeria now? No, it's not like that. That's not correct. The level of criticism I throw at Nigeria is so, it's just how much I love Nigeria. I mean, but at the same time, I need to tell Nigeria the truth. The politicians in
Hmm.
Nigeria are busy siphoning, stealing people's money that are meant for water. You just talk about simple water, roads, Medicare, education. If other countries that provide these laudable programs for their people,
Hmm.
if they are also choosing the path of stealing the money, I always use myself as an example. Someone like me as a pensioner, I will not be getting the benefit I get today because I have colleagues that are my age group that ordinary 4,000 or how many thousand per month as a pension, they don't get it. But somebody somewhere in the office of pension, whatever, steal the billions and get away with it. Nothing happened to them. What do you say to that kind of a situation? Is this do you condemn it, or do you think it's because the military have been in power 38 years out of the 62 years? What do you think are responsible for that?
So remember when earlier on I talked about institutions,
Hmm.
and part of those institutions that we need are institutions that ensure that um, the rule of law takes its right course.
Hmm.
So right now, the rule of law does not take its right course, and because of that, you have a lot of um, a lot of shall I say, abuse of power, as you have described in your comments.
Hmm.
And by no means would I justify that and say that is because of the military. It is simply because, you know, we have leaders who, in my opinion, are visionless and suffer very heavily from a short-termism that is absolutely, unimaginable. I struggle to understand how anyone can be so short-sighted in some of in the way that they abuse public trust and
and get away with
confidence.
it.
Yeah, and and this is where what the rule of law comes in, because the rule of law is not fully entrenched. It means that people are going to commit crime of such magnitude. Stealing people's pension is is a terrible, it's something quite. I mean, I don't even have the words for it. But there is no retribution. There are no consequences for actions like this, other than newspaper headlines. And I feel like these are some of the areas that Nigeria really needs to up its game as a country. And for people that intend to serve Nigeria to begin to look into how they want to, you know, correct a lot of these ills. And, by no means am I being ignorant or naive about these are real issues. These are issues that affect people daily. These are issues that people die unreported over, simple drugs that are not made available on time, or simple medical intervention that are not available on time, kill millions in Nigeria. And these, you know, there's simply no excuse for these things. And I would not sit here and try to make excuses for them. But like I said, it's my country. I'm sitting here asking myself, in the word of I can't remember which of the American founding fathers said it, that do not ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. So I sit here and often ask myself what I can do for my country.
Again, I heard people say, Otumba, everything you say and do is against. No, I want to repeat. I said it 1 minute ago. I love Nigeria, but what I don't love in Nigeria are the area of act of retardedness, that we have no good governance 62 years, even inclusive of the so-called military ones among us. What do there must be an area, because as you speak now, there is the 4 years of government is coming to an end, sometimes in February, March next year, and some people are juggling. They want to be next president of Nigeria, and one or two part of the country, uh, to be precise, the Igbo and the Yoruba, are now saying, you know what, this relationship of 62 years had not brought us anywhere. And that's why I gave you the floor to also enumerate, to also say to everybody listening to you and I, that 62 years have not kò sáǹfààní àní nǹkan kan tá benefit in àwọn èèyàn. See, when I say benefit, my minimum benefit start with at least minimum accommodation, the minimum element of economy, education, Medicare, good roads, security. I mean, we don't need to debate that. None of what I've just said is available, and that is the truth. The last one is the biggest nightmare for an average Niger. I've not even mentioned transportation and some other things. IT, I've not mentioned it. Because these are lists of things that make a country, uh, a country to be, I mean, to say pé ìlú yìí dá. Kò sí olórí méjì náà tán rúlu UK. So there are two tribes, major tribes in Nigeria, the Hausa, Igbo, and the Yoruba. Two of them are saying, hello, how many more years shall we wait? We ada. Some people are even saying, are you not saying to us like, wait, ká máa lọ pọnmi sínú apẹ̀rẹ̀. Do you understand that expression?
Yes.
Ká lọ pọnmi sínú apẹ̀rẹ̀, because another 4 years to get what? The last 60 something years, we got nothing for it. So why do you now want to take us along to, you are asking us to continue? And I look at it and say, that's true. Promising Akbere means nothing will come out of it. Because whoever emerges tomorrow is not going to fix the problem of the country. They're just going to be the same old story. The number of years to come might be good for people who are still at in their 20s, 30s, 40s. Actually, by the time you one now. But people like us, we are not yet departing. If anybody don't even try it. Nobody should think that we are they are going to, they are on the parting launch, departure launch. No, 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 not yet. Hey, Joe, come and try it. Nobody should wish me and Obasanjo that kind of thing, and my other friends. The particular two tribes are saying, the Igbo and the Yoruba. They say this relationship is not working. What do you want to say to them?
So I think I'm going to try and answer this as directly as I can.
Please do.
I am what you call the name they call us in some mediums is one Nigerianists. I am
Hmm.
a one Nigerianists, and I think maybe you know a a different expression might be a Republican. I am for the Republic of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Hmm.
And the reason why I am is because when I look at some of the issues raised by nationalists, i.e., the people who are agitating for Nigeria to break into, I don't know, smaller parts,
Hmm.
I ask myself how much agitation they've done at their local level, how much pressure they put on their governments at home, the fixation with the center, how much of that energy have they focused on their governors at state level and at local government level. Because when you really think about it, it may not be perfect, but Nigeria practices federalism, and each state, so an Igbo state is not governed by a Yoruba governor. At least we haven't seen that in Nigeria. All of each of the six Yoruba states in the southwest geopolitical zones are governed by Yoruba people who
Hmm.
are often of the same extraction of that state. So currently, the governor of Ogun State is Dapo Abiodun. He's from Remo. Before him was Ibukunle Amosun. He's an Egba man. And before him was Gbenga Daniel, also from Ijebu. So I'm beginning to wonder, what we expect to be different. Are we expecting a new set of human beings to populate these areas that would then take us to this El Dorado we think we're going to get by breaking Nigeria apart? So far, what we are seeing is that at every level of government, by every ethnic group, the disappointment is equal and all encompassing. So what will be different? I mean, I don't want to speak to what the Southeast is doing, but I want to speak to what the Southwest is doing because I am part of the Southwest. This is my region, and I have a voice and I have a right to you know to state where I stand. So there's nobody. One of the conversations I had a while ago. I remember that in 2011, when all of the Southwest states, except for Ondo, were governed by ACN governors, and Ondo, in fact, was governed by Labour under Olusegun Mimiko. But even at that, he said that Labour was just a junior sister of the ACN. At the time, some of the gimmicks that we were told was that there was going to be a regional integration. In fact, um, a Yoruba civic organization. I believe they're called the Afenifere Renewal Group. They produced a document, otherwise known um, as the Dawn. The Dawn Commission. They're called. So,
mm,
Development Agenda for Western Nigeria. And this document, it's such a small document, but they provided a strategy roadmap for integrating the transportation, the road networks, and some of the sectors of these states into one, so that they could act as one big block and use the economic of scale to develop the entire southwest region. What became of that? Nothing. In fact, that's the closest we've ever got to as having something that's regional. And these were all Yoruba governors from the same party. Nothing came out of it. So I struggle to align with the idea that it is only when we get Yoruba nation or when we get Oduduwa nation that we're going to get this El Dorado we desire. When this whole time all of our states are governed by our own sons, and they've done nothing but, you know, be complete disappointments.
mm. If someone says to you, despite, I understand, I can feel your frustration. I can also share the argument or the sentiment that Chibe ile wa nbe kile ṣe fúnra yín in the first place. But you and I know that there's something called tools, the freedom, the
Hmm.
ambience,
Hmm.
the large opportunity to make things happen. And when you look at the way uh, Nigeria is put together as we speak, there's like any other nation in the whole world, there's always that on top umbrella, which is the constitution. When you look at the constitution, because Dàpọ̀ Abiodun, Mimiko, àti Memise, àti all of them could turn around and say, well, look, couldn't operate, we don't have the tools, we don't have the freedom, we don't have what it takes to operate and a vibrant a state that will be envy of other states. Because when you look at the United States of America with about 50, I think 51 countries in one, in
52.
about 52, wherever. Yeah. And when you look at the development is is because there's a element of federalism, a loose one. Federalism in terms of New York develops at their own speed and space, and the nearest, uh, one of the nearest states is New Jersey, Philadelphia, and some other area. If you're not happy, you can always go somewhere. But they have that freedom, they have their laws, they have their rules, they have everything. Why is that eluding a country like Nigeria that has a problem with 1999 constitution that hold on to major area of development? A typical example of security and light and some other things. What was somebody, well, you are not a political advisor. What do you explain to your children that the major tools that somebody going to study IT has direct access to the latest IT software, equipments, and so on and so forth, devices. And someone who wants to study IT, whatever, has no access to anything. They will bring him an old uh, kaput device or whatever, and in fact, as they are plugging it, it busts. So they cannot breathe. What do you say to people who argue that if we are on our own, we'll have a better opportunity. It's going to be better for us because we'll be able to make our laws. There will not be a room for somebody to steal at the scale money Commonwealth is being stolen in Nigeria, because that's a major issue. So what do you what will you say? Do you think it's a bad idea that at least if we regroup, because the constitution as we speak is more favorable to one party out of the three main parties in Nigeria. Are you satisfied that the other two should continue to suffer in the relationship? What's your take?
Okay, so I think in order to unpack a lot of this, I think I need to kind of clarify some things
Go on.
that people often share around as news that are actually untrue. That's simply not true. So first of all, the the constitution does not stop any state from generating its own electricity.
Oh
In
yes, there
fact,
is 100%. We can. I don't know the section, but Engineer Tayo, I can tell you for free. That has just been uh, regulated
no,
of
no. So
recent.
let me finish this point, sir.
Yeah.
So each state is allowed to generate and distribute electricity within its own borders. That has always been the case.
No, no, not always. No.
It has, sir. And
It-
I'm going to give you examples,
okay, go on.
if you will allow me.
Yeah, sure.
It
It's
has
up to you.
always been the case. And it is the reason why when Tinubu was governor in Lagos State, he brought Enron. Enron was going to develop a an IPP project for Lagos State, independent power production for Lagos State, which Obasanjo moved against at the time. So the
Why?
constitution, hang on a minute, sir. So the
Okay. Yeah.
constitution allows each state to generate electricity within its own borders. That has always been the case. Now, the amend yes, that's correct. You are welcome to go and find out a little bit more about it. And then I have another example. In Ogun State, Governor Gbenga Daniel was governor of Ogun State, he had a similar idea. In fact, he spent billions and brought the machinery to Ogun State. And the vast majority of those machinery ended up rotting away because another governor came in and decided that, oh, I don't want to do what my predecessor did. These are, you can verify this. This information is everywhere.
I'm checking it through Google. I'm listening to
Yes.
you, man.
So that has always been the case. Nobody has stopped our governors from generating electricity within the borders of their states. The constitution does not stop any state from doing that. That's number one. Number two, agriculture has been the highest the highest earner in Nigeria, not earner of foreign reserves, but of of Nigeria's revenue. Agriculture has always been the largest share of our total revenue. Let me use Ogun State for example. I am aware of several farming settlements that Chief Obafemi Awolowo during the days of Western Region had. There were 20, and I'm aware of at least 3 in Ogun State. There is Adodo. There's a farming settlement in Adodo. There is one in Igbogila. There is one in Shamojo. Between those 3, there's like over 20,000 acres of land. Nobody has stopped any of our governors from developing those facilities are just there rotting away. The constitution has not stopped any governor from doing that. My hometown, until very recently, did not have a primary healthcare unit. And that is true for many small towns, many rural towns across Ogun State and other states across the southwest region. The constitution does not stop any governor from providing primary healthcare hospitals. So I'm every time I hear
If I may
this,
interrupt you there, because I just
go
Google it
on,
and
sir.
I'm sure I can make also a call to constitutional lawyer who can please tell
By
us.
all means, do
The,
so, sir.
it's stated here in Google that Nigerian states enabled by
Mm.
law reform to supply electricity. That was March 2022. And like I told you,
So, so hang on, sir.
prior to that time, you cannot generate.
You
The
can't
states,
generate
the
within.
states
Hang
that
on a
signed the
minute, sir.
Lagos,
I
inclusive
am
of
going to. I am. Wait now. I'm going to put in. Uh, I'm going to put in a link so that you can see as far back. So, I'm going to put a link
mm,
in the. I think in the private chat area for you to look at.
yes, please.
So that is the headline on Lagos IPP. This was in 2011. And like I said, remember how I mentioned Enron to you? This was the company that was supposed to lead this thing. A similar project
How long
was,
ago? How long ago are you talking about now?
this is 2011, sir.
So 2011, we're talking of 62 years that has generation of electricity has always been a mirage.
But I'm saying, sir, that electricity generation within the borders of your states has always been allowed. The constitution has not stopped any governor from generating electricity within the borders of their states. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I need to concede. I need to double check. From what I'm seeing here, there is a
So what
constitutional
you are talking
amendment.
about, sir, what you are talking about is the amendment. So there were several amendments to the constitution in 2022.
Mm,
One of which was to remove electricity generation away from the executive list.
yes, because
That's what you're
executive has always
That's what
one
you're
more.
talking about. But what I'm saying to you, sir, and which you can check, is that that constitution has not stopped any state. So, for example, this is what Lagos State tried to do, and Ogun State for that matter. As long as the electricity that you generate is within the borders of your state, like it is used within your state, you can do it.
Why no states in the whole of federation, apart from the Enron you side that federal bank
Exactly.
was try to bring? But then again, it was attacked. The president of the federation said, "No, you can't do it." So
So, in a sense, you cannot hold the constitution responsible
oh, of course.
for it not happening.
Oh, I will, because
How?
yeah, I'll tell you why. You see, once there's a concurrent list, there's exclusive list or whatever, and most of what is in the is about 100 and something area of uh, considerations, and almost about 60 or 78% of it are left in the hand of federal. One of them is also this electricity thing, and also security and some other things. And the federal government, all the subsequent federal government have bastardized all of them. They are keep using it as an excuse and say, no, it's only we that can do that. Another typical example that I think looks very stupid is the issue of roads. Most of the road, in fact, within Agege, they say you cannot touch Ogba Berekodo Agege because it's a federal road. And most of these roads are deteriorated within a state. Those are the things that I believe that they have been put in the constitution by myopic legal draftsmen, and they make it so impossible. So the point I'm trying to make is, for me, all these things, at the end of the day, the government, are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah, can you excuse me for a second, sir?
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
We're going to go on a short break. When we come back,
Okay, sir.
we're going to go on a short break. Yeah, thank you. So you are back. Thank you very much for coming back. We are going to continue our show after the short break. Well, the way things are, that's one thing I love about my show is a local proper show. Can you hear me?
I
Proper
can't, sir.
local show, proper one. No mago mago is real. It's not. It's not bombarded with a lot of fake things. It's real. So the people are real. The topic are also real. So not neither the guest nor myself are under pressure. Are you happy to continue?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now I've tried to take you through area of concern
Hmm.
for some for two major groups. There are three major groups that were merged together about 100 and something years ago now. And the caveat in that amalgamation was after 100 years. It's all in history that at least we know that some British traders, they were looking for bread and butter and blah, blah, blah. They ended up finding, uh, what's it called, River Niger. Blah, that's history is there. I didn't finish my history studies A level. So, but at least as we know today, let's use today's information that these three major tribes, people were matched together. And after 100 years, they were asked to sit down and look at the whether the relationship can be continued and on what basis it should be continued. Now, 2014, when at the expiration of that amalgamation, it's also an history that there are a lot of structure, there are a lot of changes, there are a lot of rearrangements, redesignment they put together, but for some reasons, the thing it was not actualized. The changes did not take place, and that has posed a lot of problems. I'm going through this just to allow you, I mean, to enable you to understand my next question very well. Based on all that, there are two other major tribes who are now saying, look, what stops us in having our own state or country within a country at first? That was when some people are agitating for restructuring, even though that's gone past now. That slot is gone. Nobody wants restructuring anymore. Very few people will say they want restructuring. So the Yoruba now are saying, hang on a minute, we look at so many other things that bound us together before. We were matched together by force. And because we couldn't break on the way we waited for 100 years, now as we speak, we're looking at the values. We're looking at the opportunities, the economic, the social, the welfare, and everything, the security uh, 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 area that we could do better, we could do more. But because, as we speak, the 1999 Constitution make a better opportunity for the northern part of the country, they refused. Because I can tell you that they refused and said, no, Nigeria is not divisible. And a lot of intellectuals are now saying, who says that? Nigeria can be divided. Let everybody stay on their area as it is in America and some other states in the world. Let each and individual stay and do their own thing. And before I give it to you, you make mention of the last number of years that we've been running our state. Who stops us doing this and doing that? And I've just said to you, and the truth of the matter is, when we are in our own 100% land, we should be able to regulate, rewrite, rearrange, readdress, and reappraise certain things that will make life better for us as how it is now, that we've been denied of many other things. What's your take? Do you understand what I'm saying? So what do you say to that?
So, Otunba, I think on this one, it may just be easier for us to agree to disagree because we're going to keep going around in circles.
Yep.
Because many of those things that you that's both of us have alluded to are things or are sectors that are under the remit of the state governments. We can sit here and argue about the perfection, how perfect Nigerian federalism is, but the fact is we practice federalism, and by the practice
I
of
will
that
try not to
federalism,
interrupt you. I'll try, but I'll make notes. I'll try not to interrupt you. Go on.
and the practice of and by that practice of federalism, various sectors are within the remit of state governors. The entire administration of a state, their ability to generate income, remains within the purview of any state. The federal government has nothing to do with any of that. Electricity is one of those examples I just mentioned. I just mentioned agriculture, in fact, citing many of the farming settlements that Chief Obafemi Awolowo um, started in the western region that are now in many of these states, and the federal government is not stopping them from doing anything with them. So, and then people talk about the 1999 constitution. The 1999 constitution is simply a copy of the 1979 constitution with some maybe minor amendments here and there. The 1979 constitution, the way the 1979 constitution was written, was that Olusegun Obasanjo at the time constituted a constituent assembly, basically picking people up, 201 member constituent assembly and a 20-team drafting assembly to produce this constitution. And it was under that constitution that Chief Obafemi Awolowo ran for president in 1979. That Nnamdi Azikiwe ran for president. So what I don't understand is what has changed between then and now, especially when you consider that this document is the 1999 constitution is a near copy of the 1979 constitution. And then finally, I am often surprised at how some of my Yoruba brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers choose to overlook many of the problems that we have had as Yorubas and we still continue to have. There is no state in the Southwest region now where you don't have a majority group and a minority group, and where those majority group are not one way or another usurping the rights of the minority groups. If you go to Oyo State, you will hear people complain about the marginalization of Okeogun access. If you come to Ogun State, you will hear people complain about the marginalization of Aworis and Yewas. If you go to Lagos State, you will hear the marginalization of even the Aworis, like the original, you know, aborigines of Lagos. And I can't imagine anything is different in Ekiti and Ondo states. So I'm struggling to understand, and these are everyday realities that these people are living with. People in these states, people under these circumstances. So what exactly is going to be different when we then move to this? So when we move to Odua Nation or Yoruba Nation, or whatever designation it's given. That's number one. And then secondly, if people genuinely want this, what is stopping them from seeking a political solution like it's done everywhere in the world? People want to snap their fingers and get a result. Well, the political process is a slow machine. It doesn't work like that. Those are just opinions, by the way. If you were then to ask me what I desire to see Nigeria remain as one. That's my personal desire.
Thank you. There's an area which I think is very interesting you mentioned, and that I think if we agree, I do appreciate that when you said we can agree to disagree, which is fine. It's part of the show here. Not fussy about people's opinion, idea, and so on and so forth. You mentioned federalism. I'm sure, again, I don't want to claim an expert on a certain area of my studies, but true federalism, if you're looking at true federal, do you want to say to me the federalism in America, in Germany, in some other place, do you think it's the same thing in Nigeria?
I did say in my submission, sir, that Nigeria practices federalism, even if an imperfect one.
Okay, what will you suggest if you see something that is imperfect? Obviously, an average human being wants a great deal of perfectness in something they do.
Hmm.
If the imperfectness is affecting day-to-day life of an average Nigerian in terms of no progress made, in terms of education, Medicare, good roads, uh, many other things that people need, security. If if this imperfection is we need to be agreeing, not to disagree, to get all the states have 100% control. As you speak, the problem you and I are struggling to digest now is that there's no 100% control of all these states we are talking about. Because most of the area they are supposed to have 100% control, like in America, where state of New Jersey, state of New York, I keep using those two areas that I know, and many other states, they are in charge, 100% in charge of everything they do. Yes, having said that, there's the federal aspect of America is where maybe foreign area, military, whatever. Which, if you agree, we can leave that in the hand of federal system before. But as we speak now, Yoruba people have said enough is enough. They cannot even wait for that because that opportunity has lapsed. It's not going to happen again. But the federalism, and you also mentioned the 1979 Constitution. The 1979 Constitution did not give the federal so much power, because you also alluded to late Obafemi Awolowo campaign and also apply to be president with that same constitution. And I know very well that all what is stated in 1979 constitution have been taken away, have been now replanted in the hand of the federal in the 1999 constitution, whereby it's so many things is just impossible. And that's why I say if we're talking a federalism, let us practice a proper federalism like it's in America. Let all these states, let all these whatever be the
When
be the owner of their business. Let them do their own business. Let them run their own business 100%ly. So thereafter, the area that they need to have, they can come together once in every 2 years or whatever, is major area like foreign affairs, uh, military, but not when it comes to you keep using the word within their borders. Not when it comes to education, when it comes to Medicare, when it comes to certain area that's supposed to be exclusively in the hand of the state. Those things that are supposed to be in the hand of the state are now incorporated in the federal government. A good example is policing. I'm sure you will agree with me that some people are killing our, and it takes them a couple of days to call. Example, I might exaggerate a little bit, to get the inspector of general police, inspector general of police, who is a Fulani guy. I said, well, who and who are killed? If can you imagine if it were to be the policing was in the hands of of a state, the state would have taken a quick and swift action in finding out who are the perpetrators. But that's not happening in Nigeria. And also, there's other areas that because of the the not congestion, because of things like that have been put in the hand of few leaders in the federal level. They make it impossible. Look at corruption. If Yoruba people were to have their own country, there will not be enough room for anybody to steal as much as what is going on in the federal now.
Otumba, Otumba, do you want to talk about corruption during the Western region?
Corruption during the Western region was very, very regulated. I mean, I
Was
grew
it?
up during the time of Western region. The corruption, well, you can tell me more. I don't want to use the age yardstick. Tayo,
Uh,
genuinely, I'm very, very liberal. As it is, you know your area, you know your onions. There are many things you know that I might not know them. I'm not going to take that away from any youth or anybody. Tell me if the corruption in Western region, because Western region for an average person with me, Western region, well, you're looking at Western region from the 1954, 54, no, 52, 54 to
1951 to 1950, 1951 to
yes,
1963.
63, thereabout. So what's the
Well, or
corruption like?
maybe 1951 to 1960 to 1966 when the coup happened, essentially.
No, but
Yeah.
we stopped having the Western region was not really prominent then, because the 66, the Aaron and Ango Rossi changed the whole
Yeah,
dynamics.
but in 19 the coup was in
66,
1966.
yeah,
Before the coup, the regions were pretty much
yes,
in operation.
yes, that's
So
true.
so
And
yeah, so 1951 to 1966.
you know how much the Western region have achieved. What we've done within a period of that time, we have virtually everything other European countries do not even have. Am I right?
You are right. We had a lot of things, but corruption was also quite
But
rife.
tell me one of the area that corruption was so rampant, that's so endemic as we speak. If corruption, like I can say, even in Europe, in some civilized country, corruptions are not noticeable because they are under carpet, not even under the table. But unlike in Nigeria, it's like it's all over the place. There's nothing anybody can do in Nigeria that will not go to put either take or receive.
Okay,
But I want you to
so
put more light on the
let me first go back to I'm going to well, I'll come back to that one.
okay.
So I want to talk about when you talk about you know items on the concurrent and the exclusive lists with
Mm,
respect to each constitution. So we talked about 1979. Remember how I said 1979 and 1999 are copies? Like 1999 is just a small with a small amendment is a copy of 1979 constitution. So the 1979 constitution had 65 items on the exclusive lists.
yeah.
That's 65, within the purview of the federal government, and 12 items on the concurrent list.
Mm,
The 1999 had 68 items on the exclusive list and 12 items on the concurrent list.
mm,
So the number of items on the concurrent list did not change. 3 items were added from 3 added were, the exclusive list increased by 3 items. So this is what I was saying earlier on about how the difference between the 1979 constitution and the 1999 constitution is so small. But people are fixated on this. I don't know how many people have even read this constitution.
mm,
When you talked about education earlier on, primary school education is under the purview of local governments.
mm,
Local governments are supposed to look after primary schools, ensure that the schools are well maintained, pay the salary of their teachers, provide books and resources that the kids need to learn. But today, the governors have emasculated local government chairmen from performing their role. Secondary school education is within the purview of the state government. The federal government is not stopping anybody from doing that. Those are primary, basic education are not in the purview of the federal government. In fact, even university education, with respect to university education, so the federal government has its own institution which it funds. The state governments have their own. This is why you have, you know, Olabisi Onabanjo University, which is a state university. Everything that happens at Olabisi Onabanjo University is within the purview of Dapo Abiodun, the governor of Ogun State, and many other institutions like that. Whatever happens at Ogun Poly is within his purview. Whatever happens at TASWED is within its purview. These are all higher institutions. And you can carry that across to Lagos as well. LASU, LASPOTEC, all those are under the purview of state governments. UNILAG is a federal institution. So what happens at UNILAG will be based on federal policies. And these are my issues. So if we get Yoruba nation, if we what are the new leaders? Unless we've decided that we're going to go and import new set of Yorubas.
And I want to tell you for free that the changes that you think might not be possible are going to be possible based on the rules, laws, and regulations on the put on the table, because
So
there.
what's stopping? What is stopping our governors? Our
uh,
governors who are Yorubas like us, sir. What is stopping them from providing, you know, true governance to us? They are Yorubas like us. They are not, remember, they're not from the east and they're not from the north. They are one of us. They are part and parcel of us. What is stopping them? What are the rules? How is the federal government standing in their way?
I've just said the issue. The federal government is standing in the way of the old western region by invoking some of the obnoxious rules, laws in the 1999 constitution. That was also a kind of a constitution that was not a people's constitution. It was a constitution that was written by the army. It was the what is his name, General Abdullahi or whatever he's called, that put a hush hush.
Abdusalam, Abdusalami,
Whatever, yes, that.
Abdusalami with some help from civilians. But remember, Otumba, we said the 1999 constitution is a copy of 1979 constitution.
But you agree also that it wasn't a total copy and paste. There are some
It's
changes.
it's a
The changes brought into the 1999 constitution
What
is
changes?
first.
What I want to know are the changes within 1999 constitution that makes it so different from
One of them is
1970.
the issue of policing, which
Well,
is
policing, Otumba, policing has always been federal. We've always had
why should it be? But it's not federal in America. The police, the
I am
police.
saying what I'm saying, sir, is that between 1979 and 19, it wasn't the 1999 constitution that made policing, that did not give us state policing. We've always had federal police across all of,
And
as
now,
in one.
yeah, I agree. Well, I'm now saying to you, this is also part of the problem. The part of the problem is there's certain industry, there's certain things you can do. Now, you also you alluded to, if federal government agrees to, they have nothing against you raising your individual IGR.
Mhm.
In America, the IGR is kept in the pocket of the state.
As
But
it
in
listen,
Nigeria, substantial part of the IGR generated by Lagos State, which is number one IGR state that has a lot of billions to play with, they almost, I don't know, substantial part of that percentage of the IGR goes to the federal government.
that
Why
is
should
not
that
true,
be?
sir.
It is true.
That is not true, sir.
You know what?
Because
Again,
you would have to provide me with
I will,
evidence.
and I think, with your indulgence, because I'm going to go to another state. I mean, I want to. I'm going to next time re-invite you
Yes.
with one more person that you can, because there's also a limit that I can keep argue. I don't want to argue with my guests. I don't want to start. I want to learn from you. I want to pick information from you. But please, we're going to talk about when next is available, that I can bring somebody to come and throw more light. So there's going to be 2 or 3 people in the studio, and then we can take it from there. Uh, Engineer Tayo, I want to appreciate. I do want to also thank you, and also
Thank you, sir.
uh, want to send my best regards to the family, because I know it's a time when food and some other things need to be properly put on the table for the children, for the family, and it's because of whether to be or not to be. We started late, that's why. So I appreciate you.
Thank you,
I
sir.
I hope next time when I call, there will not be any. I mean, Rai Murai kankan, because I enjoy having you on my show. Ẹ ṣeun gan, mo dúpẹ́ dúpẹ́. So
Thank you,
this is
sir.
going to
Thank you for
be on
inviting me,
YouTube.
sir.
Some people are already watching it on YouTube, and like I said, I think I sent you a link already, so you can repost it so many people can watch this show and see how styling, how great you are. I mean, how you have performed. So, wow. But like I said, I promise you, next time around, it's not going to be only you in the studio. Are going to be 1 or 2 other people who knows what it's all about, what we want. So I mean, highly um, interested in Yoruba nation, because to me there's no alternative to it, and I've no doubt in my mind that the time will come when we have our own nation. On this note, mo fẹ́ dúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ yín again and again. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. All right. Thank
All
you.
right, sir.
Yeah. Bye
Good
bye.
night, sir.
Good
Bye.
night. Thank you. Well, that has been another end of Who Latest on Otunba Who Latest show. One-on-one, my guest was engineer Tayo Okuboyejo. Okuboyejo. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.